It was a good performance by Arsenal today. They looked a lot more energised, a lot more at it. You've got to say today, Saka, star boy, was the star boy. What a performance he put in. Even though it was only for 45 minutes, they took him at half-time, but he was very influential in this Arsenal performance today. Willing to run in behind, the little runs he makes from outside in, the switch of play. Everything about Arsenal today looked better. It was a performance that they can take a lot of positives from.
Was this the game that Arsenal finally sort of cut loose? Because I think a lot of people saying coming into this one, if you looked at the game against Atletico Madrid, the way they played against Newcastle as well, it was cagey, it was nervous. They felt like they were faltering over the line if they were going to win the Premier League title. Whereas today, as we saw in the first half, they really did perform really well.
They did. They looked energetic. They looked confident. And they looked a lot more relaxed. You know, when they played today, it was a very good performance. It's something that we haven't seen from Arsenal for a while. And when you look at it, it's the first time this season, at half-time, they've gone in with a 3-0 lead. And this is Arsenal at the top of the Premier League table. But again, you could take a lot of positives from it. We started with a very strong side, which was quite surprising when you look at all these other teams when they've swapped with the Champions League coming up midweek, that they've swapped and changed the side. And Arsenal started with a very strong team, and then he made some changes at half-time. But it just shows how vital each game is for Arsenal going forward.
You mentioned a couple of the really good individual performance from Arsenal players in the first half. The 2 goal scorers, Gyökeres got 2, Saka as well. And both of them were brilliant today. Arguably the best performance we've seen from Saka so far this season.
It was an important performance for Saka, Adam. When you look at it again, you talk about the run-in. They've got a big game coming up midweek against Atletico Madrid in the second leg of the Champions League. He's the captain, he is the star boy, as they called him, and he was very influential. It's so good when your captain and your leader, one of your top players, puts in a performance like that with such a big week ahead and also other games coming up. But he looked like the Saka of old. Like I said, the energy levels were different, and it was an infectious performance by this young man that other players played well too. You've got to also give credit to Trossard on the other side. He looked a bit like the Trossard that we saw early on in the season. So Arsenal, for me, did what they had to do today, getting the result, playing well, and they can move on to the next.
I mean, that move for the first goal, it was a tidy finish from close range from Gyökeres, but it was all about the setup, wasn't it, Saka? He sat the defender down on his bum, as we'd say back home. It was a brilliant piece of skill. And he is one of those players, he's a mercurial player, as you mentioned a couple of seasons ago. When he's at his best, he's enjoying his football, he's got a smile on his face, and he's trying things out, all these little skills that we're doing as 7 or 8-year-olds, he was able to do in the Premier League. And I think that's what, for me, and injuries have played a part in it, have been missing from his game this season. But we saw that in the first half. He was willing to be brave and try things.
He played with a smile on his face.
Exactly.
We haven't seen that in a long time. And when he played with a smile on his face, like I said, there was that confidence again, the arrogance was kind of there. And because he was doing that, and we've seen him be Arsenal captain, it's infectious to the rest of the team. So then they start to be relaxed. When one of your star players is playing so well and he's got that belief and that swagger about him, it becomes infectious to the rest of the team. And that was what the performance was. And to take him off at half-time, obviously looking ahead to the Atletico Madrid game as well, it was vital for him to have a big game for Arsenal today.
Another 2 goals for Gyökeres. It does seem, though, some fans, not necessarily all Arsenal fans, the jury's still out for them for some reason over him. But you can't deny his record. I know it's his first season playing in the Premier League. He scored some important goals. And when they've needed him to step up, most of the time he has, hasn't he?
Yes, I mean, you can be critical, Adam. Let's be real. He's got 2 goals today. He wasn't brought in to score specifically against competition like Fulham. He got his 2 goals. He could have had a hat-trick. I think for me, when you look at Gyökeres, you've got to put yourself under more pressure. And then they played against Manchester City. The biggest game of the season for Arsenal so far this season was against Manchester City at the Etihad. He was on the bench. But he's doing what he has to do. He had an opportunity today with Kai Havertz's injury. He got the 2 goals. Hopefully he can get a lot of confidence from that. But he's got to keep doing it at a lot more consistent level.
But you think, though, for a first season, though, in the Premier League, I think if you've offered Arsenal fans the numbers that he's put up in terms of goals scored and some of the other contributions, surely they would have taken that. He has made the difference.
He's done okay. He's done okay. I think that he could have done a lot better, in my opinion. He's missed a lot of chances, and for me, he hasn't got in the right spots or right areas. But it's not just all on him, because Arsenal's performances for a while haven't been great as well. Have they been playing to his strengths? That's something that people probably question. But for me, when you're playing at that level and you look at being at like club like Arsenal, you have to have a lot more about yourself. You have to have that arrogance. You talk about top players that we've seen in the Premier League, the Thierry Henrys, the Didier Drogba. They always had that confidence, that swagger. And for me, he's gone there. He needs to show more of that, a bit more belief in himself. It's got to be more clinical, because today, like we said, he's got 2 goals and an assist, but he could have had a hat-trick. And he should be disappointed that he didn't get the hat-trick. But for Arsenal, for what they needed overall, they got the result, which is the bigger thing. It's not just about him. They got the win. It was a confident win, and they can continue to move forward.
You're a tough man to please. Do you think he can get there, though, in subsequent seasons for Arsenal, given the work he's done here in this first campaign, that he can get to be at the level of some of those names you've mentioned there, the Drogba, the great Premier League strikers? I think he's got that in his locker. Like
you said, he's had his first season in the Premier League now nearly, so he should know what the league is about. Next season is when he's going to be really judged, I feel, when you can really know where he stands. Because as much as now he's adapted to the Premier League, also the defenders now will have been able to adapt to him. So next year will be even more of a challenging year for him. So if he can get more goals than he did this season, then you could say, okay, maybe he could get there. Because even with the names like I've just said, Didier Drogba wasn't great when he first came to the Premier League. A lot of people questioned him whether he would be good enough quality-wise, and he grew to become the legend that he did in the Premier League.
Even with Haaland in that second season for him, given how many goals he'd scored in the first season, defenders started to figure out how to defend against him, what works, what doesn't work. We must talk about Mikel Arteta as well, because he needed a calm head on his shoulders. He was talking, wasn't he, in the pre-match press conferences about the potentially the lineup he was going to pick. This is what he went for. Obviously, Lewis Skelly playing out of position, normally a fullback. He did play as a midfielder in his earlier career with Arsenal. I thought he played brilliantly in that midfield position, and maybe we'll get a chance to play there again in subsequent games. But I think Arteta deserves some credit too with not panicking. Fulham aren't easy to play. Fulham have got something to play for, haven't they? They're still with an outside chance before this game of getting into Europe. And he was able to put this team out there, give them the information they needed prior to the game, and they delivered.
Yeah, I mean, you give Arteta credit, but did he really have a choice, Adam? That's the thing. You talk about the Champions League, obviously the tough game that they had with Atletico Madrid. You know that they've got to stay on point when it comes to the Premier League, with Manchester City breathing on their neck. And again, they've got the second round of the Champions League again. So I expected him to have a strong team, and he put a strong team out. Lewis Skelly, like you mentioned, given an opportunity, took it, played very well. Will he start midweek? I really doubt it. I think he'll change it again. But then again, taking off Saka at halftime, we saw Rice come off around the 65th minute. So he's already got one eye looking forward to that second leg at Atletico Madrid, which is going to be very difficult for them at home. But every game that he plays, he has to put out his strongest team. And when you compare to, obviously, Atletico Madrid, they put out a very weakened side. They changed their team completely in their domestic game in La Liga. And I know that they're going to put a very strong side, as we know, go into the Emirates for this second leg. But when you look at Arsenal, they're in a different ship, different boat right now, where every week he has to put out his strongest team. They have to keep the winning mentality. They have to keep winning games. They can't take their foot off the pedal.
We're going to talk about the two factors going forward separately, the Champions League and what it means for Manchester City. Let's start with the Champions League. Looking at the way they played today, I know there will be some changes, maybe Lewis Skelly, some of the others who will drop out for other players coming in for that game in midweek. But did that make you feel a bit more comfortable about how they'll perform at the Emirates against Atletico?
Yeah, I'd have to say so, definitely. Yes, it's a different animal. It's Champions League. It can maybe get a bit nervy and cagey. But if they play with that energy and if they play with that freedom, they will cause this Atletico Madrid side problems. And especially when your top players turn up, like Saka did today. If he starts like that in this game midweek, this Champions League second leg, Arsenal should have no problems. You know, they're good on set pieces again, the confidence and the swagger and the energy. That was what I felt has been missing for Arsenal for a while, the energy levels. You start to talk about fatigue. Declan Rice, another player who had a fantastic game today, talk about maybe a future England captain and you know, maybe the Premier League player of the season also. But for me, they need to bring that same energy. Mikel Arteta, the manager, has been the one talking a lot, showing that he has the energy, the belief, talking about being on fire. But for some reason, the messages that he was putting out there didn't seem to be making it to the players with the performances they were putting out. But today they did put a performance.
Yeah, today looked like the fire had started. That was much better.
100%. Today is a performance where it looks like finally the messaging that Mikel Arteta has been given went to the players. You know, and I've been looking for these Arsenal players to really take the emphasis and go out there and put in a performance to say, right, we're going to shut everyone up who's criticised us. Tell all those doubters that you have no idea what you're talking about. That was a performance there where I could say we take one step forward.
So that's the Champions League perspective. In terms of the Premier League title race, and Ian and I were talking about this on Scoreline the other day, about the psychology of a title race. Are you the team that gets to punch first in the fight and play first in the weekend? This was Arsenal this weekend. They won the game, and that puts the pressure on the other team involved in Manchester City. They've got 2 games in hand, but they don't have the points on the board, and that has a real psychological effect to their game against Everton, who are still potentially fighting for European spot, and that's never an easy game at any point of a Premier League season, is it?
No, it's never an easy game. But again, you talk about experience. Experience is priceless, and Manchester City have been there and done that. People won't like that because we probably say we sound like a broken record using that all the time, but it's just the reality of it. And when I look at, obviously, the League Cup final, spoke to some of the players at Manchester City and they said they smell blood. There's a different mentality and mindset there. And you look at their team, they've got winners there. Winners like Bernardo Silva, historic winners, John Stone. They've got these players who've had this experience before. They smell blood. They're high on confidence. And I think for Manchester City, it's a different approach we're seeing for Pep Guardiola now. I think there's just a belief of we're going to score more goals than you. There's an arrogance about them. And just like how Saka had an influential game today for Arsenal, Ryan Shirky's been very influential for Manchester City.
They might smell blood, though, but if we look at the games that Arsenal have got from now until the end of the season in terms of the Premier League, obviously they've got that game against Atletico and potentially the Champions League final at the end of May. But West Ham, Burnley and Crystal Palace, I would say, certainly West Ham and Burnley, you would pick them to win all of the games from now until the end of the season, don't you?
I would say so, but I do worry for that West Ham game. I think the West Ham could be a potential banana slip for them, and especially with West Ham's result today, losing to Brentford. It's not a great result for them, and they have to have a bounce-back performance. And then obviously you've got Arsenal have to play Atletico Madrid first. There's no guarantee that that's going to be an easy one. I worry about that West Ham game, and especially with how West Ham, I think it's 2 years ago, West Ham played Arsenal, did the same thing. They came, they sat in, everyone behind the ball, made it difficult for Arsenal, frustrated them, and hit them on the counter-attack. That could be the same scenario again with this West Ham side, but it's Arsenal. It's all on Arsenal to have that same energy. It doesn't matter who they're going to face. If they have that same energy and that same application that they showed today, they shouldn't have any problems.
Yeah, and I think personally, looking at those fixtures, if they aren't able to win those 3, then they don't deserve to win the title, do they? So let's have a quick look at the standings before we go, just to remind you of how it is going into that game for Manchester City on Monday against Everton. So 6 points the gap for Arsenal now after beating winning that game today.
Thanks for watching this video from our CBS Sports Matchday coverage. For more analysis and for all of the games, including Serie A, EFL, as well as a full suite of UEFA club competitions like the UEFA Women's Champions League, sign up for Paramount+.